rush coming out from T1 from a lobby, you can just flashpoint and immediately by the time those rush pushes will falter and completely fizzle out if they run into that breach, especially with the Omen behind him to give an extra little bit of threat. But T1 don't care about A, they're going for the big piece, they're going to try and take a big old chunk out of that mid that Envy have virtually abandoned right now.
Yeah, you said it before, T1, if you give them mid, they will take it. However, it seems that they're going for a B push, and there is a 3 stack on B at the moment. In fact, Spike is all the way towards Garage, so you know that they're looking towards B, and they're going to need to be careful because running straight into a raise. Let's see who wins out these duels. Spike is down in Garage. That does not bode well for T1, and Envy is more than likely going to take this first round.
It's going to be very interesting as well to see how T1 deal with this in that next round. Because do you aggressively go for that mid control and to try and sweep it out from the defense and change up the distance, make sure that you don't get burned down by things like rifles from afar? Or do you play a little bit more passively and try to use that information that you are provided with this composition? That Cypher can be so good. If he's able to get that camera onto A lobby, you get so much information. Not just on who's playing on A, but by default, the members who are left to contest mid and B as well.
Brax has just pulled out the Marshall on attack. I'm here for it. I think that's fantastic. And again, they're going for that mid control. They do, however, have Brax all the way over on A site, and I think that's why they opt to give him that Marshall, just so that he's got something to kind of work with there, but it's not a heck of a lot. Now, Envy not making the same mistake of completely giving up mid. They do attempt to contest it, but it's not a very strong attempt, and Brax's Marshall proves useless against Crash's Spectre, and that's a terrible thing to happen to T1 on this offense. Does make a little bit of noise over on the A site, but Envy are not falling for it. They are going to be pushing towards B to try and hold. And Mume goes down to Dazed. That's finally a good pick on T1. Let's see if they can follow up with this. They are now going to be playing a little bit more carefully, a little bit more slowly. They know that they've got a little bit of an advantage here. Flashpoint comes out, doesn't manage to blind anyone. Caboose will win the 1v1 against AZK.
One enemy remaining.
Back and forth scrap here. Last person standing, and unfortunately Spider just not able to get any results there.
I'm worried about T1. Because going for that Marshall on a force buy when you've lost pistols, that was what T1 did continuously when they were playing up against, I believe it was Luminosity. A couple of days ago. And it meant that every single round they come in, because they go for these very strange hybrid force buys, on rounds where you don't necessarily want to be on the force buy, their economy was consistently on the back foot, and they had to come up with more bizarre plays, and you're seeing it now. We don't really tend to see teams want to go for the broken buy on the third round, but because they invested so heavily in the mushroom, because it wasn't able to find anything before it was taken out, T1's economy is in the absolute drink. And so instead they're creating a lot of noise, they're trying to make it seem like they do want that presence on mid, and if Envy want to try and commit onto them, they're first going to have to use a lot of utility or risk exposing themselves, and that will provide T1 the opportunity to take this close quarters fight and upgrade their weapons.
Mummy finally holding really, really close in mid, and that's because he's managed to pick up the Judge. But the dark cover shuts him down a little bit in terms of sight. It's not going to be enough to stop him. He goes on an absolute rampage, gets 2 kills. Now 2 of his own managed to get taken down. Very unfortunate there, but they still have the numbers advantage here. They're aggressing in on Skadoodle. Skadoodle gets a pick, but the follow-up is good from Food, and that's going to be another round 1 out here for Envy. Yes, they gave up mid control for the first 2 rounds, but once we had that Jet available for, or rather the Judge available for Mame, he pushes out, gets some fantastic kills, and now off the back of winning that round has enough money to pick up the Operator. Strangely enough, this is not going to be holding it in mid. We're giving up mid.
It looks like
mid
he's going
is
to go
for
for
free.
that. It looks like he's going to go for that very aggressive B garage play, right? Where you have the Operator to try and find a pick when T1 are moving in. Perhaps without using that utility to try and keep themselves safe. They want to save it for that mid fight, or better yet, the recontest. But Not going to find the Omen. Still going to hold the angle, still shutting down 50% of that approach onto the site. So T1 instead having to move through mid. A little bit risky as... Oh, that Omen is edging. Spider's getting closer and closer to peeking. And all Mume is doing is a mantra of don't move, don't move, don't move.
And T1 put a lot of faith in this default where they've got Brax kind of towards A trying to get some information and then Spider towards B also looking for that information. But now Spider goes to pick up the spike. He gets the information.
Oh.
They're going to be going for a B push. No, they don't know that
gonna be
Mame has the
peeking
op. They
with the
don't know that
spike.
Mame is chilling right there. As soon as he walks into Mame's FOV, he's going to get annihilated. Assuming Mame
Sam,
hits
this
his
is
shot.
like a ship.
We
This is
have
a train
seen...
wreck. This is like a train
Potentially,
wreck.
okay?
You can't just walk away.
30 seconds
The
left.
paranoia does come through. So he does want to move in, but Mummy is just holding this angle. They're hearing the communication.
Ooh. There it is.
There it is.
Spike's down in garage. I mean, what more do you say about that, right?
One
For some reason, they had Spike pushing alone through
seconds
B,
left.
and it's not the first time they've done this. It's the second time, in fact. Oh no. Oh no. Brax.
It wasn't a knife.
For the
Sam,
sake-
it wasn't a knife. It could have been a knife.
It could have been worse. And that, for the second time, they send Spider alone towards B with the Spike. Absolutely zero backup. Spike gets dropped in garage. And there's Envy. And they're just sitting there with, you know, their thumbs in their mouths. Like, all right, what do we do now? Because Spike is on the other side of the map. We've already pushed way too far into enemy territory. There's no way we get that back. And this is a mistake they need to stop making. And they need to stop making it now.
Well, they're going to go for that same aggressive push through garage, but this time the spike isn't going to be that. Spike's going to be on mid instead. But Mume is on mid as well with the operator. Doesn't manage to hit the shot, but is able to tailwind safely out. And you do have the Raze making sure that if that Jet misses the shot and gets pressed in on, you can go for that trade pick. And T1 do not want to push in aggressively. They know the operator is there. They want to get full collection of the members of Envy, so they will be checking vents. They could even use this to splinter their way onto that A site. The Race is making sure that the Omen does not actually come through and catch them as they try and press in aggressively onto that B.
Once again, T1 not deviating from this default. They are staggering a little bit towards mid here, but at least the spike isn't on one lone person all the way on B. The Cloudburst will come out from all the way on the other side of the map, and that's going to give a little bit of space here. But it looks like the spike is going to be moving towards A, because what did Envy do? They gave up mid for free. So they're going to be moving up towards A. There's a 3-stack on B for Envy, so this is kind of free
30
real
seconds
estate
left.
for T1 at the moment. If they go now, they are wasting a lot of time. We've said this time and again from T1. They take a little bit too long to make a decision, but that early pickoff onto FNS could be exactly what they need. They've stopped that out, and that means that they have a massive numbers advantage. Showstopper will come out here. Oh, gets taken down
10
by
seconds
Crashies
left.
mid-showstopper, and that's the second time that that's happened on this map. Crashies and Food just being absolute staples for their team here, and they shut down T1. And this is why they aren't giving up mid-control, because, like, so what? We'll just get you when you get to site. It's fine.
Here's the thing, even though T1 have that mid control, they don't really use it, or rather they go 25% of the way there. Like, we see them move towards A, we see them start to gravitate towards that heaven side. They want to drop down into the window and onto the plant side, but they're so hesitant, so cautious, that Envy is given all of the time in the world to get the entire team rotation through. And so when you start losing players, when you start being pressured in heaven, you can't actually rotate to back because there's already Envy members who are going to meet you along the way. So for T1, you've got to be able to take this mid control, yes, but you've actually got to be able to use it aggressively as well.
T1 deviating a little bit from their default for a change. They realize that what they have been doing has just not been working out. And that fluidity, that was something I praised them for a little bit earlier on in the series. And I'm glad to see that they're bringing that fluidity out here. Again, also important to note, they do have Rolling Thunder. But there is an opposing Rolling Thunder online for Crashies. He's just at the top of this ramp. No, checks the corner, but unfortunately doesn't notice that Crashies is not in the corner. And that's going to be 2 kills in favor of Envy. And that means that they also know that T1 is moving for that A site. Spider is so far away from the rest of the team. Brings out the 1v1 versus Caboose. As T1 start to kind of even this out a little bit for themselves. They even use the neural depth to give themselves that information of where is everyone else on the map. We see Spider teleporting to the back of B site to give a little bit of a crossfire there. And it looks like Brax is going to be able to get the plant here. Mame trying to push this with the operator, but with a lot of dark cover in the way. Gonna stunt that progression just a little bit. Let's see if they can push through onto point here. They've got really good sight of the spike right now. And no, it looks like Envy are going to back out. Nah, Envy are backing out. Like, they thought about it for half a second, and they're just like, nah. Would you though?
They just don't feel comfortable, but you can see the difference, right? When you don't have control of mid, how fast T1 is able to rotate onto that B site and get that spike down in comparison to Envy, who have to go so slowly through the entirety of defender spawn. They can't just move through mid and navigate part of the map in the absolute blink of an eye. T1 finally getting mid, finally using it aggressively. They used a lot of ultimates to make sure that Envy were kept at bay long enough for them to get onto that point and use that mid control. But they were able to pick up a point, and they've still kept a hold of this Rolling Thunder. So I'm really looking for this breach to use that Rolling Thunder as a way for them to either immediately clear mid or just to move on to one of these points. Because when we see T1 go successful is when we see the team go aggressive. However, that might not be the style of play you want to go for this round because Envy have double bot operators.
And that's a very spicy situation to be heading into. Of course, they want to hold down every angle that they possibly can. Now, I praise T1 for moving away from their default in the previous round, which seemed to work out really well for them. But they're back to their old ways here, as we've got 3 looking to claim mid. Mume is going to be watching here. Spider, if he sets a toe out, we've seen this happen before. This could be an instant replay of what happened just a few rounds ago. And of course, we've got the Omen holding down the site on A with the operator as well. So T1's only real option here is to try and take mid control. And that's exactly what they've done every single round. But this just means that it's slightly more insurance for Envy to make sure that T1 can't pull the same shenanigans that they pulled last time.
Well, that's why you've got the 2 operators, right? Even if they take mid, they've still got to commit onto either B or A. And so no matter which way they go, they're still going to come up against an operator.
The disappointing thing to note is that they are repeating some shenanigans, but it's the shenanigans of we're going to take this
30 seconds
far
left.
too slowly for our own good. We're down to 30 seconds left. It looks like it's going to be the A hit. Finally, the Rolling Thunder will come out, but the counter Rolling Thunder comes out as well, and that's going to create a lot of dissension between these two teams. Nobody's taken a shot just yet. Flashpoint comes out. Paranoia moving across the map. It's a good trade, but it's heavily in favor of Envy. Oh my goodness, Mume. He just flanks over from the B side, pops the knives, gets those last couple of kills, and it's just a flurry of knives. He's barely aiming at that point. He's just kind of putting his crosshair in the general direction of an enemy, manages to get to, and once again, T1, I don't know how many more times I can say this, but T1 just playing way too hesitantly.
They thought they had more time. They thought that that Rolling Thunder would prevent Envy from getting that faster rotation onto A and Heaven. But we see Envy go so aggressively with that Blade Storm. Mummy uses that to make sure that they can go in as aggressively as we know that this Jet likes to play. You can already see that Operator going to be scoping out as Spider is dancing with death yet again. Spike has not been picked up by T1. They still want to make sure that they can figure out which way is best. They know they're going to be going up against 2 operators again, and they don't want to risk Spike carrier going down in a place where those operator sites can just camp the corpse.
Right now, it kind of feels like T1 are just living for their defense, right? Because we know this is a defender-heavy map. It's one of the reasons it's the least played map potentially in the world. But they need to get at least 2 points on the board to be in with a chance, 4 points on the board to be somewhat comfortable. And there's not a lot of time to make that happen. T1, and again, back to their same default, and it just doesn't work for them. They also have no ultimates to work with coming into this, and we do have the teleport coming out here as the Omen makes his way over to the A site. And Envy have this whole map on lock except for mid, and that's kind of what I like about their strategy. Yes, they give up mid, but they have the rest of the map on lock, and I just noticed, but Spider is alone towards B with the spike again. Thankfully, he opts not to push out on his own, but instead starts to make the rotation, but he's going to run straight into... Ooh, manages to teleport out of danger, but Food has got A site on lock.
Remaining.
And that's it. That's Envy winning out yet another defensive round. Moxie, sing me my favorite song.
Mid doesn't matter in this fight because Envy aren't contesting it. And because Envy aren't contesting it, they're not being baited into using too much utility or losing players early. In fact, what they're doing is, even like with that from the shadows that we saw where the Omen uses it to just teleport onto A side, they're preparing for when T1 are actually going to hit these sites. And because T1 don't know whether Envy are going to contest that mid, T1 have to invest if they want to actually be able to take that space that sometimes they can just walk in and get for free. But because they're the ones investing, they're actually bullying themselves out of that utility, and so Envy is in a much better position. However, that operator shot is going to give an awful lot away, and Spider, he's still thinking about it. He's still around in Garage. The rest of the team aren't there. The spike isn't there either. So this is all distraction technique
this is an eco round,
that you only have to run against one up. And this is indeed an eco round. So if you're T1, you just want to get in as quickly as you can, do as much damage, try and pull one of these operators out. Emphasis being on try. It's so hard to close up to this distance, Sam, when you're on split. Because all the defense needs to do is hold these really punishing angles.
I know exactly where
just that was... This makes this a pretty solid eco round for T1. Managing to kill 2? Yeah, I mean, we take that. It's not going to do much to their economy at all, but it's impressive that they're able to get 2 kills. But it's not going to be enough. That's going to be another point on the board for Envy. But like we always say, eco rounds, you monkey in, you hope for the best, you come back, you full buy, and you continue to hope for the best.
But you're still up against the worst. You're still unfortunately up against the worst, because the point differential between these two teams, even if you manage to separate the operators from Envy, both the operators from Envy, look at the trust funds that Envy have currently written to themselves.
I'm so glad that's become a thing.
7,200, 6,100, and poor T1, they're buying from a pound shop right now.
I love that my trust fund baby analogy has become commonplace. That makes me happy. Oh, what also makes me happy is very clean operator shots, and that's going to be Mome once again just shutting things down. Oh man, losing your jet again, that's your entry fragger, and it's super unfortunate to lose that out so early on. The Raze is still alive, so there's some potential there. But once again, you know, this is T1's typical playbook. It's telegraphed. That's the word I've been searching for. T1 right now is telegraphed. Envy know exactly what they're going to do at just about any given time, and the spike is still chilling in market. Nobody's done anything with it. They've started to push out, and Brax just dies to food.
I mean, T1, unfortunately, I gush about their mid-control, and they do indeed have mid-control, but it's the same attacks. So if Envy have been watching the VODs, if Envy have been following this team, when it's in, you know, a tournament like this, you do want to do your
30
homework.
seconds left.
You know where they're going to be, and that failure to adapt is absolutely brutal. So too was losing your jet so early on, because now you just don't have the threat of Blade Storm. You have to rely on Spider to use a lot of that utility. Just to make sure that they can safely get onto the point. They're gonna run right into Mume!
10 seconds left.
Phase walks right into the operator shot.
One enemy remaining.
Can
he get the point? He has enough
benefit
time.
Your team, and it can get you killed, fam. It doesn't differentiate.
Oh, that teleport, that was split seconds, but as soon as he peeks out just such low HP, FNS gets the wall bang, and he will get the defuse. But this was a fantastic round for T1 because they've managed to take the operators out of Envy's hands. That being said, I mean, we said it before, Envy are trust fund babies at this point. It doesn't matter. They're just gonna buy new operators. But forcing
They
them to
literally
buy...
just put it on their Christmas list, and it's the 24th of December.
Santa's like, you've been
Santa
a
is
good
going to
team
be
this year. You
extremely
get
generous.
ops. And this is it. This is the last round in the half. So it doesn't matter that they've started to make a dent in the economy. It's too late.
Absolutely. And for T1, you also have to look at this point differentiation. Yes, you're going to be swapping. Yes, you're going to be on the defense, which is typically favored. But we're already seeing it's so dangerous. If you lose that first round, if you lose that pistols, because if Envy take this point, then they're going to be on 10, and if you lose pistols, well, you're going to be facing down match point 2 rounds afterwards. So T1 have got to win this one if they want any chance. It is last round before swap. There is no reason to keep a hold of these ultimates. There's no reason for Mimi either to try and keep a hold of this operator. So if you're able to get one person out,
Oopsie. The flashpoint comes out, tries to follow up, but Mume was not affected by it. Takes down mid-blade storm, as you mentioned. But again, T1 didn't have a ton of options. It was mid has not been working for them. They had to try something new. But it was mid which doesn't work, or B which has an op, or A which has an op. A might work better because you can throw down a cage or a dark cover and try and move up ramps. But all things considered, Envy have made this very difficult for T1 to make any progress.
30 seconds left.
Going for that B push once again.
Going to come out. Both Razors actually going to be trading off showstoppers, but it's Cabooses who's able to pick up one, and unfortunately for T1, that was not the raise that you wanted to find success. You do have Rafters. You do actually have Mame currently separated off and beat Ali, but you still got to be able to hit the shots. Oh, beautiful satchel pack to make sure that you don't go into the operator line of sight.
That was unfortunate. They've now run out of time to get that spike plant down. But they've taken down a lot of Envy's players. Again, doesn't really matter because that was the last round in the half. You needed... Oh, sorry. This is the last round. Neither of us can do maths, Moxie. But it doesn't matter because this is something we talk about all the time. You're in that round before the last round. You don't want to go in too hard with your buys, especially when your economy is absolutely potato, which is what T1 did. And now they're coming into this round, and it looks like the round after a pistol round. They've got Spectres, a Stinger, and a Bulldog. I don't know if they're expecting to make magic happen here. I'm not expecting magic here, and that's going to put them in a really massive deficit coming into the next round.
They need to. They're going very aggressively. Boombot going to be immediately forcing them out of position with that operator, so you can section yourselves over from mid towards B, but you're actually content. You've been able to get the jet away. Oh, Rolling Thunder coming out
crashes
to make sure that you keep control of tower, you keep control of heaven, and Q1 just not going to be able to have that full numbers fight that they were searching for when they were able to get rid of one of the operator fronts.
I love that play from Mume. He had the operator, but immediately he left a gun on the floor so that if he got pressured out, he could swap to a rifle. And there was no issue. He didn't have to wait for somebody to die or whatever. So that was a really good play from Mume. But now, T1 are in the most awkward possible situation. They're chilling in the defender's spawn. We've got an Omen all the way in mid with the spike on his
30 seconds left.
But FNS is waiting on the B side. They expect him to be there, but Rifle v Spectre, it is going to be the Phantom that wins that one out. He just about solo holds here, but it's a 1v2 for AZK. And does he get the plant? No, he gets forced out of the plant.
10 seconds left.
And Food is going to get that final kill there. That's it. You're trying to go for the plant. They had the numbers,
Switching
but they
sides.
just weren't able to get that plant. Now we swap sides. It's the round before match point, which puts you in the most dangerous situation when you're T1, Moxie.
And it's pistols. And T1, the match that I saw them up against Luminosity, pistols was something that they just could not get the hang of. It took them a very long time to be able to. In fact, I think in the first 2 maps alone, they lost 3 out of 4 pistol rounds. And this is a pistol round that you have to win. Because if Envy are able to take this one away, we're on match point. We're on series point. And if you lose that pistols, T1, they can try to force by the Marshal. It's a lot easier to find by with the force by Marshal when you're the defense because you've immediately got these really long sightlines that play into the Marshal and Operator style. But
Bearing in
you
mind,
have to be able to hit those shots. And Envy have so much time to just feel comfortable.
This is, of course, a heavily defender-sided map, though. So what are we thinking? Is this going to be like a 13-11 in favor of T1? Like, they just mount the most epic comeback ever?
Do you know what? I'll answer after Pistols has carried on.
Well, after
T1,
Pistols, the game is over. There's 2 pistol rounds.
T1 need
Let's
Pistols.
see if...
I cannot state that enough, and they're being very, very slow. They know how important this round is, just as Envy know how important this round is, so they're hoping by taking a longer rotation, T1 are actually going to play themselves and come out of the positions that they're holding, revealing themselves before they're ready to shoot.
Oh, I'm loving this so much. This full stack through mid, which was absolutely free. Now they're pushing through heaven. T1 have already started the rotation, and they're quick to rotate. They're not wasting any time. But an initial pickle from Caboose with the paint satchels means that they're already up in numbers. The trades, that's a nice little trade there. But Envy, 3-2 here. They just need to get the plant, and then they need to get the post plant. And given where they're planting, they're going to have such good sight lines. Brax coming around the outside, but he doesn't have the support of his raise, which means that there's no one to swing on him if he gets into danger. He's going to push out on his own. Can he get a pick off? Starts to pull back. We'll see if he can meet up with his raise. They've got a couple of seconds here. No, he opts to push in instead. Playing this very safely. Oh, but unfortunately not safely enough because, as I said, did not have the raise there to swing on him. That being said, Envy had the swing potential. Dazed up in heaven.
Match
2
point.
guns trained on heaven. He wasn't going to survive that one. Now Moxie, this is it. Match point. This is do or die for T1.
I'm watching the weapon that Brax comes out with. What's it going to be? There's no Marshal. And Sam, we said it, you needed to win pistols. It's match point, and you're on an absolute broken by. Only one of these 5 players is rocking heavy armor. And Envy sensing blood in the water, they're coming in with Spectres, they're going to move in as aggressively as possible onto this A side, trying to shut down AZK, who does have the back point, who can buy his own safety with his utility. But now you don't have the chance for trade. T1 very quickly going to be rotating a lot of players moving, swarming over that A site. But you have to be very careful of Envy, especially that 5 Omen, who will be lurking, who will be coming through mid, which again has been abandoned.
And this doesn't bode well here for T1 as that already comes up. Picks just coming through here for Envy. It's a 4v1 and the last person goes down on screen. And that's it. Envy